Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on Om Times Radio.
And hello, this is Dr. Martha Tara Lee. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's eroscoaching.com, and you're listening to Eros Evolution. This is where sex and spirit meets, and every week I have a different guest, and last week I actually overslept and missed my own radio show, and it's highly embarrassing. However, I will have my guest back in a few weeks' time. Today I have a different guest, and today's show title is called God's Callgirl and Healing from Abuse. God's Callgirl is the name of Carla van Raaij's memoir that has now sold over 500,000 copies around the world. It is a colorful story of a Catholic girl born in the Netherlands who became a nun after migrating to Australia, stayed for 12 years, and then left to become a sex worker at the age of 34. Why did she do this, and what is she doing now? So Carla is here today to answer those questions, and she will be speaking about the major wounds that are created by abuse and how this affects our sexual expression and our relationships. She will speak about what she did to heal herself and how others can learn from her. Along the way, she will treat us to some excerpts from God's Callgirl and also from her current book, Healing from Abuse. She says, I am 77 and I have been on a healing journey since 1992, and now I feel I'm in a position to help others who are a few steps behind me. Her aim is to create a wave of healing around the world, one person at a time. And let me talk a little bit more about our guest. So Carla van Raay, she has the welfare of the abused at heart. Her memoir, God's Callgirl, describes her life as a nun and as a prostitute, both choices unconsciously based on early childhood abuse. The sequel to that is Desire, also known as The Price of Passion, a personal love story openly rich with emotion and physical passion. Her latest book is Healing from Abuse, a practical spiritual guide. It represents accumulation of all of Carla's learning along her own long healing journey. And she's a spiritual mentor for the abused, a kind encourager, and a wise support. She lives in Perth, West Australia, and she recently floated a pilot project for online support, and you can find her on her website. That's Carla van Raay. That's RAAY.com. So welcome to the show, Carla.
Hello, Martha. Good morning.
Morning. So it is 4 a.m. in Singapore and in Perth, and it's raining cats and dogs here right now. I don't know whether you can hear it.
I can't hear it. I can hear you clearly, so that's fine.
Oh, that's good. That's great. So I'm very grateful that you've agreed to do today's show. In fact, we connected on LinkedIn, and I didn't realize this until you had sent me your book in soft copy, that actually I already had a hard copy for God's Callgirl for many, many years.
Wow.
I reread the whole book to prepare for this show. I also read your third book, Healing from Abuse, and they are really, really good books. So I'm sure listeners are very intrigued by you and your history. So could you tell us, without further ado, more about yourself?
Oh, about myself. Okay, right. Well, as you said, my healing journey has been a long, long time, especially since 1992, though, when I retired from being a prostitute and went to live in a small community on the south coast of WA in a place called Denmark. And for the first time in my life, I experienced being accepted without any questions by a group of friends. And I was totally unused to this. I was unused to being accepted without question. And that was the start of my healing journey, feeling that acceptance. It's strange, isn't it, how that can happen. And what that meant, of course, was that I did not have much self-acceptance going for myself. I was highly critical of myself, and that's what I learned as a Catholic child back in the Netherlands where I was born. And that stayed with me because, well, when you experience sexual abuse, you also learn how to think very badly of yourself and feel very badly of myself. And I was one of those children who went into the very depths of self-abuse, if you like, because I started to think of myself as the worst person in the world. The person who was abandoned by God, abandoned by my angels, and the only person I had left in my life to have as a friend was the devil. I was 6 at the time, so you can imagine that this was very real to me. And the feelings of self-abandonment were extremely real. And so they don't go away if you don't deal with them. Just because you grow up doesn't mean that they go away. They stay with you. And for a long time, of course, you manage to sit on top of those feelings, to try and make a life on top of all that feelings. But one way or another, they will play out. And I chose to become a nun. That's one way of playing it out, because it's a great way of saying, I don't want sex, I don't want to know anything about it, thank you very much. It's very easy just to make a vow of chastity, then I won't have to deal with it at all. Thank you, great. And then afterwards, after 12 years of being in the convent, I then eventually chose to become a prostitute, the very opposite, and explore my sexuality that way. And that again was a choice made from that confusion created by abuse. But I was so very lucky that my motivation was quite high. I wanted to be a benefit to my clients, and I was God's call girl, if you know what I mean. I was God's call girl and wanted to benefit my clients, and I was protected because of my motivation, I think.
Yes.
But then I came out of both of those lifestyles and started healing.
Beautiful. Yes. I was struck by how God's Call Girl was really less about the abuse and really a lot of the effects of the abuse, and a big part of the book was attributed to the time when you were actually a nun, and it must have been a really difficult life from everything that you described, and the amount of detail that you went into is really heartbreaking. So I'm just wondering, for listeners out there, who haven't read the book, what has been some of the response that you've received from this book?
The responses I received from the book, yes, I've had thousands of responses from the book, from people who said, I can identify with your story. My story has been similar to yours, very different but similar. I get that all the time, because this is a reason why. Because all the feelings that I describe in that book, they are the same for everybody. What I experienced was no different from what everyone else experiences. And that was so amazing to me, because people who are abused, have been abused, they feel that the emotions that they harbor, the negative emotions that they harbor, that they must be the only ones who feel this way.
Yeah.
And it's not true at all. There's no new feeling, no new negative feeling anywhere. It's been recycled at least zillions of times,
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's emotions are exactly the same. All the deep shame, the deep self-rejection, the self-hatred, the guilt, all that is very similar. And so that's what I got. Your story is different but the same as mine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm getting from you this sense of isolation, where they feel very much alone, and reading your books help them, I feel, to articulate and put to print the feelings that were similar.
No, you're right, Martha, because isolation actually was one of the things I experienced very severely. Even though I was a child of the eldest of 7 when we came to Australia, I was the eldest child of 7, and but because of the abuse, I didn't connect with my siblings. I didn't connect with my parents. I was trying to be a very good girl because I believed that if I died, I would go straight to hell. There was no other option for me. I would go straight to hell if I died. But nevertheless, I tried to be as good a girl as possible so that perhaps, God would be pleased enough with me to spare me from hell. So I went to Mass every day, got up by myself, went through the dark to get in time for Mass every day. Wouldn't miss it unless I had a fever. Couldn't get out of bed. And then when I became a nun, I was isolated once again because I chose an order that had a very strict rule of silence. It wasn't a Carmelite order, but we still had a very strict rule. So we were not allowed to speak to each other. We were not allowed to make friends with each other.
Yeah. So coming out for a break, and we'll continue after the break.
Good.
Thank you.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Dr. Kevin here, and I want to invite you every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, to join me on the Dr. Kevin Show, where we have a diversity of guests who help you step outside the box, behind the curtain, and see what a load of crap is going on in the world today, so you have more information with which to make better decisions. We'll see you there. Namaste.
Join Vibe Nation radio host, international psychic medium Carrie Turcotte, as she guides her listeners to rediscover themselves by accessing the keys of knowledge that already exist within. Each week's show is divinely orchestrated to intertwine with the universal energies, allowing the listeners to go deeper within. At the end of each show, Carrie will tap into the energies of the listeners and give a message from Spirit about the upcoming week. If you really want to get to know who you truly are, join Carrie each Monday at 3 p.m. on Vibe Nation Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Hey, welcome back to Eros Evolution. Today we are with Carla van Raay and we're talking about her 2 books, God's Callgirl and Healing from Abuse. You can find her at Carla van Raay, that's Carla van, B-A-N, and Raay, R-A-A-Y.com. And just before break, she was talking about how she entered decided to become a nun, and they had a strict silence, and there was a lot of strict discipline. So could you continue to elaborate, Carla?
Yes. Hi there, Martha. I pronounce my name Van Raay, like,
Yes.
Carla van Raay. That's how I pronounce my name. That's okay.
Okay.
Oh, yes, the isolation and the silence. Well, that continued out of the convent as well, of course. But because we weren't allowed to speak to each other, it was such an unnatural environment that it played with your mind. And because nuns don't stop being sexual beings, even though we put on these black clothes and you can only see your face and your hands, you're still sexual beings. And especially me, because I was born a Scorpio with Venus in the 7th house, so you can. I was particularly sexual, actually, without knowing it, of course. But I fell in love with one of the nuns, and that is described in the book. That was quite excruciating because I was in her company for 3 years and wasn't allowed to speak with her in a normal way. And because I admitted this to the superior, I was also made to punish myself. And Alice, whom I fell in love with, she started to avoid me. And it was just an excruciating experience. But I would, when she came into the vicinity, I would just have spontaneous orgasms in my body. And again, I knew nothing about sexuality. I was having orgasms and didn't know what was happening, but I couldn't control these events in my body, and other people noticed this because it happened in the chapel, for instance, And I heard one nun whisper behind me one day, she said, "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," right behind me. Yeah, so I can look back on that and laugh because it's really funny, But when you're in there, when it's all real and happening, it's not funny at all. It's so painful, so very, very painful. I met Alice afterwards. I've actually stayed with her in Manchester a couple of times, and so that whole thing has been patched up. It's not there anymore. It's just something that happens on account of frustration and suppression. These strange things happen when there's no normal expression.
Yeah. I remember in the book, the punishments that you had were really severe, and the bullying that you will receive was really extraordinary and really quite unfair. And that really made your life very, very difficult. And I really can empathize and understand how brave you must have been to really leave the order.
Yes, I was not just brave, though. I was really in touch with something that guided me. God's Callgirl is a play on words because I was called to go into a convent, and I followed that call. And even though it was a way of hiding from the world, it was also a way of protecting myself. For those years I was protected, and I needed that because I was so naive. I was so out of touch with the world that my life could easily have been really ruined by inexperience. And then I was called to come out. I didn't want to come out. They tried to push me out. And for 2 years I resisted, and they could not really push me because I had made my final vows, and then you stay unless you're declared mad, and then you go to some hospital, which they also tried to do, by the way. But I saw that it was time to leave. I saw that there was no point in my staying. And as soon as I saw that, I left the chapel. I wrote a letter to the bishop. It was posted before breakfast. So that the letter went before I even told my superior that I was leaving. She wasn't pleased with that, but I had the courage to follow calls that I felt inside me. So I was called then again to become a prostitute. It might be silly or strange to say that, but that was the fact of the matter. And then an opportunity came to leave eventually in 1992, and that's what I did as well. If I had been brave enough to follow every call, I think my life's journey would have been faster. The healing journey would have been faster. I had no one to guide me.
Yeah.
But that's how life is led, you know. That's the story of lives. We do what we do until we don't. We follow the guidance we get as much as we can.
So all of us are just doing what we can with what we have, and when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And yes, I can believe how you were guided each step of the way, and you actually showed tremendous courage in seeking different kinds of healing modalities during a time that all this was probably still very new, and you really worked on healing yourself, and this also came out in your third book, Healing from Abuse. I really like how it was very sensitively written, and very, very calm and a reassuring voice that shows through in the entire book. And how I'm just wondering, like, what is the response for this third book?
Well, the book has only just come out.
I see.
Yeah, I have reviews on my website. I've shown it to a few people who have written reviews, but the book has only just come out, and my website has only just been finished this like yesterday.
Wow.
And so I haven't even announced my website.
I see.
And I haven't even announced the book as a result, you know. So all that is going to come in the coming weeks. So thank you for your comments. I did try to write it from the point of view of feeling into what a person would feel reading this book. I tried to write this book for myself. What would I like to read if I was in my position like 30, 40 years ago? How would I like this book to be? And how would it gently guide me into realizing what's going on inside me, and into being able to face it, and into being able to transform all those feelings and then release them and replace them with what is really true for me, with what I really, really want for myself. So I did my best there.
That's great, because I can really tell that you really dug very deep, and you transforming what had happened to you into something that is for the greater good of humanity. And
thank you.
That's really wonderful. So just to make it clear for listeners out there, you know, there are lots of books that are on how to heal from abuse, and what makes yours different, other than digging into that personal space of yours and writing from that perspective of wanting to help other people. Is there anything you wish to highlight about this book?
Oh, definitely, Martha. What makes this book different is that it introduces the spiritual side of a person, the spiritual nature of a person into the healing scene, and actually makes the spiritual side of a person the most powerful ally in healing.
Beautiful.
And that is not the religious side of a person. I've been through religion, as you know, and that was not what healed me, although it gave me a foundation. Religion gave me a foundation for connection with the divine, so I'm grateful to that. But it's a spiritual connection is different. And also, it goes way beyond psychology. I'm not a psychologist, so I can speak in a voice that is very human, I suppose. But it brings in the spiritual side, and I will talk more about that after the break, I suppose.
That's wonderful.
What that means, and how to introduce that into your life, how this is true for everybody. The spiritual side is true for everybody, whether we realize it or not, whether we want to use it or not, because if we happen to be spiritual beings, then that's what we are, and we can choose to deny it or choose to forget it. It's not so much denial as forgetting. That's what we do when we come onto this world. We forget our true nature. But it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to discover it and to start healing from the bottom up.
Beautiful. So I really like how you're highlighting that your book is different in the mentioning the spiritual side. I think sometimes I get so caught up and interested in all the personal development stuff and inner work and into spirituality. I just take for granted that everybody should understand all these things. And it's really lovely that your book is a true beginner's guide into all things relating to spirit and healing oneself. So I really appreciate the different things you mentioned in the book. It's not just like one method. There are actually many things that people can explore and begin asking themselves really deep questions so that they can start healing themselves. So I definitely recommend this book. So we're coming up for a break, and after the break we'll talk more with Carla van Raay.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Hi, I'm Kelly Fox, host and astrologer of The Astrology Show. Each week, I'll give you access to the current transits, which are a valuable tool that provide astrological information to help unlock the potential each of us has. Understanding the stars can help steer us in the right direction to make better informed choices. So if you're wondering what's going to happen in your week ahead, be sure to tune in to The Astrology Show for guidance. Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business, and share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business. Free your mind with Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Eros Evolution on the Om Times Radio Network, and you can share this show with your friends by going to this link, omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, your friends will be able to listen to the show without needing to download any app. That makes it really cool. And today we are with Carla van Raay, and we are talking about her 2 of 3 books, God's Callgirl and Healing from Abuse, which is her latest book. And her memoir, God's Callgirl, first published in Australia in 2004, and then in the UK, the Netherlands, Russia, Poland, Portugal, Germany, and Indonesia. And a total of around 500,000 books have been published, and it is still in print in Australia. And she's here today to talk about her 3rd book as well. And we just talked about how it's different from other kinds of books dealing with abuse out there before the break. So, Carla, welcome back to the show.
Yes, hello, Martha. The full title of the book is Healing from Abuse, A Practical Spiritual Guide. That's the full title of it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
And people will be able to find it on your website, Carla van Raay, and also on Amazon, I suppose.
Yep, that's right.
Great. I just went to your website just during the break, and it's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. I really like the color green. It's a healing color, and also the layout. And people can subscribe to your mailing list through your website.
Yes, the newsletter. It's
Yeah.
going to be fun. The newsletter is going to be fun because it's a way of connecting and just sharing what's going on in my own life and in the life of healing from abuse. And that's right. Yes, I love writing, but I love connecting now with people.
Beautiful.
Yeah, hearing from them and
Needs to hear what you have to say, and you've been doing this for a long time. How would you describe your writing style?
my writing style I would describe as conversational, warm, and people call it warm, and I would say conversational, not clinical, and not didactic. Like sometimes I say, please do this or do this, or don't do that. I do get some good sleep, make sure that you, and sometimes I give advice in the book, but generally speaking, it's not a didactic book. It's a very gentle book because I understand exactly how people can feel. Yes. Because I've been there. I've been in every nook and cranny of it. And I know the resistance. This is the big thing about changing. When you make the choice to change, all the resistance comes up from part of you that's called the negative ego, because that's where you've been hanging out for a long, long time. And the negative ego is used to being a certain way, and change is not part of its agenda. So when you, as a bigger being than the ego, decides to change, the ego is going to play up. And so everyone that decides to change needs to deal with this resistance. Otherwise, it would be so easy to heal. Otherwise, there wouldn't be need for this kind of book in the world, because it would be too easy to heal. It's not easy to heal. It takes quite a lot of determination and consistency.
Sure. Definitely. Your conversational and warm tone really does come through in the book. In the book, you mentioned about the spirit within, as you call it. So why do you feel that is important when it comes to healing from abuse?
I feel that's important because if you don't go there, where do you go? You go to the mind. You try and change the mind. You try and change the emotions via the mind. And how is that going to work? Because the mind and the emotions are the parts of a person that have the problem. The problems are in the mind. The problems are in the emotions. The problems are in the beliefs that the person carries. So you need to call on something bigger than all of that. And the bigger is already there. It's already part of our nature. We don't have to go looking outside of ourselves for something bigger, because there's something in us that can love, and that's a bigger part. The part of us that can love and accept ourselves unconditionally and say, I love you even though I don't like you, I don't like the way you feel, but I love you. That is unconditional love, and everyone is capable of this. Everyone can call on this. And the spirit within is this capacity to love. That's basically what it is, because our nature, the nature of spirit is the nature of love. The nature of the universe is the nature of love. And it's so easy to forget that in this world where there is a lot of unlove, and especially easy to forget when you have experienced a lot of unlove, everything that is not love, and you start feeling very unlovable. So it's a journey back into loving yourself. That is the healing. The spirit within is the love within. But I'll tell you what, it's very powerful, and it will not let you down if you call on it, because it is real. That is the most real part of us. So when I think people die and they regret not having done this, not having done that, I think what they regret is they haven't loved enough. They haven't done this, what they could have done, that was a loving act towards somebody. They didn't forgive somebody. They didn't do something that was loving for others or for themselves. I think that's what people regret, really. That's the only thing to regret, because we are made of love, and love is our nature, and love is the healing power.
Thank you so much. I'm very curious to ask you this question now, because I always ask this to all my guests. In Eros Evolution, we explore the link between sex and spirit. So now that you've talked about the importance of the spirit within, could you share with us a little bit how you see the link between the two, between sex and spirit?
This is how I see the link.
Okay.
Sexuality is a very powerful energy within our physical makeup, our human nature. Because it is the essence of life that we feel as a sexual energy in our body. The more sexual we feel, the more alive we feel. I've discovered, though, because I'm 77 now, that sexuality per se is not the most important energy in the physical world. It's the energy of life is actually the energy of love, the energy of loving. And when the energy of loving is there, then the energy of sexuality can persist into old age very easily. So when sexuality is based in spirituality, which is just based in love, that's what spirituality to me is, then it is very rich, and it is very encompassing, and it is sort of brought, that energy is brought to the whole of life, so then you can enjoy everything that you experience more. So the expansion of sexuality into this lovingness of oneself, and the loving all of life, which that is, to me, is the perfect combination of sexuality and spirituality, the love of life coming out in sexuality and in appreciation of everything. Does it make sense?
It does. I love your perspective. There's no right or wrong, and everybody brings something different, and I love what you're saying, that the energy of life and love, if we can tap into it, then sexuality can persist into old age easily.
Yes. And I discovered this from getting older. You know, I'm 77 now, and it's wonderful to feel that transition within myself. I'm still a sexually active person. Loving is far more important to me than just sex. Absolutely, and I won't go in for casual sex because to me that is it's just not worth it anymore. It was great when I was younger. Of course, it's all part of experience.
Yeah. Yes. I also like what you're saying now because it's about giving yourself permission to learn from what you've experienced and not judge yourself and be so hard on yourself all the time.
Yeah. Learning not to judge myself was the biggest lesson because I was very much in judgment of myself. And this is what I've discovered, that when you judge yourself, you also judge others. There's just no two ways about it. You can't decide to love others while judging yourself. You can't do that. It's not possible because we project everything that we feel inside ourselves. We project onto others. So what we judge in others is actually usually something that we deny inside ourselves. It's true of ourselves, but we deny it. Judgment is just useless, really. Discernment is a good thing. Discernment, like, knowing exactly what you're looking at, what this is, what sort of energy is there, but that's different from judging it.
Yeah. Yes, and we're going to develop discernment as we get older, and we have the capacity of reflecting on past experiences.
Yes, that's the advantage of experience. We learn discernment. After a while, we learn from hard experience. But we don't learn from judging. We don't learn from getting bitter. We learn from letting the judgment go, from taking responsibility for our choices and saying, I made that choice there, and I choose to love my choices. I choose to love what I'm learning from this experience. That's the way to get out of judgment. Choose to love everything. No, even if you don't feel like it, you choose. Love is a choice, long before it becomes a feeling. Love is a choice.
So we're up for a break, and we'll talk more about...
Okay.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Are you wondering what is really going on behind the news? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold-Holland on Share on the Air Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio. You can also find us on shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. Check it out.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
And we are into the last segment of today's show on Eros Evolution. We are talking with Carla van Raay, and we're talking about her 2 of 3 books, God's Callgirl and Healing from Abuse, a practical spiritual guide. About God's Callgirl, she has had many thousands of readers, and this book has been published, has about 500,000 copies in circulation, and obviously she has many thousands of readers. And even though many of them don't know her personally, she's not famous for any notable action. The force of this story that she has in God's Callgirl is in fact that many people are able to identify with her, namely all those who were ever sexually, emotionally, or physically abused, and all those who were ever confused about their religion. The story is full of vivid images and is told with a sense of humor when the subject allows it. And it's really truly remarkable book that really will touch you at your core. And Carla now has a 3rd book, Healing from Abuse, which goes into being very practical in helping readers to work on all the kinds of other issues that is probably coming up to the surface. So welcome back to the show, Carla.
Yes, here I am, Martha.
Thank you. So you mentioned, we mentioned earlier that we would do a little excerpt from your book, God's Callgirl.
Right. Yeah. From God's Callgirl. Yeah. Okay. I would also like to read a little excerpt from the book Healing from Abuse, because there's a very important chapter there on protecting yourself. It's only 4 pages long, but it talks about the effect, the energetic effect of people around you, and especially of the abusers that might have been in your life, and how you need to cut the cords that connect you to other people and keep them clear and clean, and how to have a protection around you. This is not a usual topic, I suppose, but it's particularly important, especially if you're into drugs or into alcohol, because if you notice in the world, there are people who do horrendous acts of violence and murder and so forth. They later on they wonder how did I possibly do this, but they were there at the time under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And it's not just the drugs or alcohol that does this. It's because then you open a pathway to energies that are using you. People that use drugs and alcohol, they're opening up their energetic field to be influenced by energies around them that want these things to happen. They're actually being used to commit these acts. So if you have that awareness, then you might want to know how to protect yourself, how to not do this, how to actually positively protect yourself. And there's a little chapter in there about this. Now, reading from God's Callgirl, where I've opened it up on page 201, and it says about the value of suffering, right? We meaning we nuns or we Catholic people, had to listen to the words of the value of suffering. The thought of getting closer to Jesus through pain held an immense attraction for our collective ego, in the convent that is. Life in the convent was intense. Suffering seemed to be on the menu daily. In the main chapel, I always had the feeling that it was better to stay quite still to avoid attracting attention to myself, because there was always a Mother Superior there that was on the lookout for anyone that was sitting down for too long, for instance, or going to sleep, or using too much of a book, prayer book. We had to meditate without too much help. Where would you like me to read? Do you want me to make a comment about suffering or not?
Sure.
Oh, yeah? Okay. Yeah, well, suffering happens quite naturally in life, doesn't it? The things we experience, the things that the universe sends us to experience, that's the suffering of life that we need to really deal with and transform. Those are messages, hey, something needs to be transformed here. And to put on suffering, like, putting salt in your tea, that's what we used to do, or getting ourselves a whip, whipping ourselves around the back, or whipping ourselves around the leg, those are just ego actions trying to make us feel better than everybody else. That's what happened with us nuns. We thought we were better than everybody else. We were closer to Jesus because we made ourselves suffer, which is a huge illusion. This is not the truth at all. And what it allowed us to do is make ourselves think superior. We were superior to other people, and it allowed us to not look at the psychological self, at all the problems we were carrying, all the baggage we were carrying inside us, all the pride and all the glamour of that. Yeah, it's actually that's a good word for it. Actually, the glamour of suffering.
Yeah,
it's a lot of foolishness. The truth is that we need to learn to feel all our feelings, no matter what they are. Be willing to be with all our feelings and love them into wholeness again. One way or another, that's what therapy is. It's just different ways of coming to that same point of being able to accept the deepest, most horrible feelings and notions about ourselves and start to transform that into the truth of who we are. Now, let me find another part of the book that's not quite so depressing.
I really love what you're sharing about suffering, the glamour of suffering. I think it's really, really profound what you just shared. I think a lot of us hold on to suffering as if it's some kind of battle scar and proof of character, when really we just need to love ourselves to wholeness, like what you shared. Really, really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm speaking from experience. Yeah. All right. So here in the book now, towards the end, it says here, what else was there to do but be compassionate with myself? I was beginning to feel that maybe I was no better or worse than anybody else in the world, that given the right circumstances, I too could take the path of a criminal, a lying, cheating bastard, a murderer, or a sadist. I felt the seeds of all these possibilities in me, and it sobered me. Paradoxically, maybe because it was the simple truth, the thought also gave me peace. I would always be an imperfect human, full of all sorts of illusions, except the illusion that hating myself was going to save me. Yes.
Yeah, I love what you're sharing. It's really a very, very emotional and deep book that you have. It's really quite different from anything that I've ever read.
Well, it's not just a book. I realize, though, that even though the book is a strong invitation and a very clear invitation to healing yourself and giving yourself a way forward, you need support. And I have devised a support online for people on the healing journey. There's a membership that you can join so that you can become a member on a closed Facebook group. You can receive lessons every month, every fortnight actually. There's a new lesson sent to you, and emails and messages in between, and you're able to connect with me and tell me how you're going. There are choices about levels of involvement that you for doing this work with me. So not just with me either. If you want to work with other people, there are resources there for working with other people. So you need support when you're on this journey. You can't do it on yourself, on your own. You're not meant to do it on your own. We're not isolated here. We are meant to support one another and to find support that we need. The help is there, but it sometimes and often will come from another person. It doesn't all come from inside of yourself.
Beautiful. And people can find you at Carla van Raay. That's VANRAAY.com. And that's where they can find your membership program.
Yep, that's right.
And also, we want to do a last shout out for your latest book, Healing from Abuse, a practical guide to a practical spiritual guide. So, how much does it cost, and where is it available?
If you buy it from me, I'll send it to you. Then it costs $25 plus postage. It's at the Book Depository and Booktopia. It's on Amazon, and they are different prices actually. So it's not very expensive to buy the printed book, and it's also available as an ebook.
Thank you very much, Carla, for coming onto today's show and for your beautiful sharing. And really, it's your presence. You have such a lovely, warm presence, and it's really inspiring for anybody who has gone through any emotional, physical, sexual abuse. Your courage is really evident, and I really feel very privileged and honored that you agreed to be on today.
Thank you so much, Martha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next week we have a different guest, and her name is Elise Carr, and she's going to be talking about the divinely empowered woman. So tune in to Eros Evolution next week.